Light, for hosting us today for a really important conversation. I think, as we all know, the President and Republican House and Senate passed what was called the reconciliation bill. They called it the Big Beautiful Bill. I call it the Big Ugly Bill. I have heard so much and have fought so much against it because of the costs that it is going to be to families who rely on health care. Everyone's costs are going to go up. We know about the Medicaid cuts. Heard a lot from nutrition groups about what it means for families and the cost of food. But one part of that bill that passed that we haven't heard as much about is how it is going to impact the cost of energy for our families and our businesses. So I wanted to do this today so we can all understand, see what's going on, and help raise voices to fight back. What I'm talking about is the clean energy tax credits that were cut dramatically in the reconciliation bill. Clean energy, which everyone here is involved in, is absolutely essential for our families, for our businesses, for all of us here in Washington State. It makes our energy system more sustainable, more affordable, and it brings jobs to our state. So I want to talk about the impact of the reconciliation bill that we are going to continue, or will see and will continue to see here in our state and across the country. First of all, the tax, renewable tax cuts for families. Before the bill, the Republican bill passed, the typical household in Washington State could save anywhere from $390 to $900 on their annual energy bill because of the clean energy tax credits Democrats passed. Those are gone. So energy prices for families is going to go up. We know that the energy tax credits and the investments in clean energy are going to be lost. We know that Puget Sound Solar estimated that their plan will end the tax credit for rooftop residential solar. That could shrink the market by 50 to 60% here in Washington State. The investments that people are making in clean energy that are absolutely vital for our future will be gone. So we could lose over $8.7 billion in new investments in clean energy right here in Washington State. These are going to raise the cost for everybody. It's going to set us back in terms of our access to clean energy. And the reason it's so important is so people know why this is coming, and that we continue to raise our voices to fight back and see if we can make changes in the future, which will be hard right now. But that's not all. We are seeing more. Right now, President Trump is illegally directing funding for clean energy to fossil fuels. That will be fought in the courts, but as we can see, he is not done yet. And he is making dramatic cuts in our annual budget and appropriations bills to the investment in clean energy. Those I am fighting back really hard against as vice chair of the Appropriations Committee and putting those dollars back into our federal budget, but it has to pass a Republican Congress, so it is work to do ahead. But why I wanted to hear from everyone today is so you can talk about what this means to you and your company or your families or the people that you serve, so we can all understand that the only way to stop this is to fight back. So I'm here to raise awareness, and I really appreciate everybody who's here to be involved with it. So we're going to start right now with Director Nguyễn from the Washington State Department.
Thank you so much, Senator, and thank you so much for convening us as well. Obviously, in Washington State, we do a number of great things very well when it comes to aerospace technology, but also clean energy. And when you look at the impacts that this is having in our communities today, not later, but today, is that we're seeing projects get frozen. We're seeing jobs get lost. And I want to reiterate that these are not just clean energy jobs. I've already gone around Washington State talking to local communities, talking to economic development groups, and the first thing that they'll say is, we need more housing and we need more energy. So when you don't have enough energy to create, enough supply for manufacturing, to create enough supply for housing, you lose these jobs and you lose these resources. So this has a multiplier effect that impacts us in Washington State. And ironically, it happens generally in rural communities that probably need this help the most. So from our perspective, we're very thankful for your leadership. We're very thankful for the partnerships at the federal level. And we are very lucky in that Washington State cares about decarbonization and they care about climate change. The Climate Commitment Act was just defended. We have our Clean Energy Transformation Act with goals for us to decarbonize as well. So we're going to march forward in terms of how this works. but obviously it makes it a lot easier when you have a federal partner to do that with. So the things that really bug me and kind of keep me up at night is that, you know, obviously we're going to have this fight, we'll have these conversations, but the people who aren't able to be at this table, the people who aren't able to raise their voices, those are the ones that are going to be most impacted by these terrible, terrible policies that are happening at the federal level right now. And it's going to impact our jobs, it's going to make your electricity more expensive, and candidly, it could make us more risky for brownouts or blackouts with our infrastructure being weakened as well. So overall, this doesn't do anything, no matter your political affiliation. So thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you, Senator Murray, for this opportunity to share with you our concerns as an electric utility committed to clean energy. These impacts on City Light and our customers of the recently passed reconciliation bill are significant. City Light is forecasting significant load growth in the next decade. We have a near-term need to double our nameplate capacity in the next 9 years to meet growing load. Looking forward, City Light must invest in technologies and approaches to energy conservation and new renewables, including wind and solar, to meet our customers' growing energy needs. The clean energy tax credits and incentives that were included in the Inflation Reduction Act passed in 2022 were integral to support public and private investment by American companies in new renewable energy projects and residential and customer rooftop solar and energy efficiency investments to keep pace with these load growth forecasts. These tax credits reflected an important partnership with the federal government to meet our bold clean energy goals to address the existential threat of climate change while reducing the energy burden on our customers. Now is not the time to put our head in the sand. We are already behind in addressing the Earth's warming and the impact on our communities. The reconciliation package passed by the Republican-controlled Congress rapidly phases out and eliminates critical financing tools for the utilities, private developers, and our customers to deploy utility-scale solar and wind generation and customer-installed solar as well as energy efficiency. And this includes things that help us conserve, like windows and door insulation and HVAC systems. Every new megawatt of generation that we add now will cost significantly more than the cost of our current energy portfolio. For City Light, with the elimination of these tax credits, we're losing 30% of the capital cost, so staff are estimating a 10 to 20% increase in costs to procure new resources. These costs are costs we must pass on to our customers in the electric rates. We applaud the efforts of Senator Murray to bring attention to the federal government's abandonment of efforts to address climate change and highlight the real impacts of what this reversal will mean to our customers and residents in Washington State.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Senator Murray, for leading on this and being aware of it, bringing it to light, bringing this table together for discussion. This impacts so much, especially from a workforce perspective. And I want to thank you, Dawn, for being a partner with our utilities. IBEW 77 is one of the largest utility locals in the nation. We previously were a membership of 8,300. We're currently just shy of 9,000. And if you incorporate all of our non-utility IBEWs in the state of Washington, we're talking about over 20,000 workers who are impacted by this policy. And Commissioner Nguyen, thank you for all of the work that you've done on this too. I just want to elevate from a worker's perspective. Before I go on, I got a little ahead of myself. IBEW 77 partners with all of our utilities. We have the same common goal. Our members are part of the solution. Our members are the ones who build, maintain this critical infrastructure that we're all going to rely on. They are the subject matter experts. But in partnership with our utilities, we can accomplish these things. recently with this change in the tax credits, it has been incredibly problematic. I do know that from a workforce perspective, I won't speak on utilities, all other projects are affected. But from a workforce perspective, it definitely affects our apprenticeship model, which you have to have the work in order to go through the apprenticeship program. So no work means that there's going to be a stifled pipeline of those who are going to be skilled to do this work. You don't just flip a switch, you don't just have these workers, it's all built on the premise of building the pipeline, which we're all ready to build. We've done that. We've done the good work. Washington State has done a wonderful job leading the way on these charges. So fewer training spots result in stalled careers, reduced workforce pipeline, just taking some high notes here. IBEW 46, our non-utility branch, had wanted to be here. And I think Nicole Grant very specific comments that everyone should hear. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read to ensure that I capture it correctly. And she said that for IBEW 6, overnight construction on solar energy projects has been canceled. 100 construction electricians are unemployed in Seattle right now and looking at shipping containers full of already purchased solar panels that will never be installed because of these cuts is devastating. And this is the clean energy that will never be generated for our community either. So direct impact to our, that I want to bring home. IBEW workforce that stands ready to meet the clean energy challenges of the future. Our members, experienced in every facet of utility work from generation, transmission, safe delivery, and distribution, and all the critical supporting classifications nobody thinks of, have the skills and adaptability and drive to build and maintain the advanced energy infrastructure our communities need. But the reduction in clean energy projects threatens this progress. When projects stall, it's not just loss of jobs at risk, it's the pace of innovation, it's the reliability of our energy system that suffers. Our union believes we need to keep building. Investing in clean energy isn't about today's economy alone. It's laying the foundation for a safer, more resilient, and more suitable, sustainable future. With continued investment and opportunity, IBEW workers are ready to power and meet the energy needs for generations to come in Washington. So we want to be part of the solution, and we will fight the good fight as well.
Thank you. Thank you again, Senator Murphy, for pulling us all together. There's a lot of aspects of the Trump and Republican bill that have a big impact on energy prices, on jobs, our efforts to fight climate. I just want to talk about one, which is energy, which has been already talked about. And it starts with the most basics of supply and demand. I mean, you talked about it, Don, here in Seattle, but everywhere we're expecting, I mean, for the past mostly 3 decades, demand for energy has been pretty flat. And because of data centers, because of AI, because of electrification and other things, for the first time in a long time, we're expecting a really significant, not a small increase, a significant, the estimates I've seen are about 2% a year annually. So over 10 years, we're talking about a 25% increase in demand. So we need more supply. And this is, to me, a stunning number. In 2024, in the United States, 93% of all new energy that got added to the grid was either solar or wind or battery storage, and the whole country. So the cheapest and most reliable and fastest to go on the grid energy is solar and wind and battery storage. If you care nothing about climate change, and you only care about making sure that we can keep growing jobs and lead on AI and lead in data center, you should want all power. And in 2024, 93% of it came from solar, wind, and data center. Why we would have a policy that goes backwards on that makes zero sense at all, right? And so what is going to be the result of it? First of all, it's been talked about a bunch, and you led with it, Senator Murray. We are expecting price increases. When supply and demand are battling each other out the way that they are right now, we're going to have increases. And the numbers I've seen in Washington State, we expect an increase for energy prices of about $55 per household, and in other states it's much higher. The price differences matter quite a bit state to state, but we will see price increases here in Washington State. We're expecting, let me get this number so I get this straight. In terms of supply, the impact of the could decrease electric capacity by 18 gigawatts in Washington State. So to put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of 2 Seattle's worth of energy. So at a time when we need to be building more supply, this is going to take 2 Seattle's worth of energy out of the supply. I am also particularly concerned about just the renewable energy projects that are in play in Washington State and the fact that they are going to go, they're not going to maybe move forward in the way that they were expected to. That's going to cost jobs. You talk about that, Christine. And it's going to also, again, reduce the amount of power that we're generating, again, by roughly about 2 Seattle's worth. So at a time when we have increased demand and the overwhelmingly cheapest and easiest and fastest to get on the grid power is going away because of this policy, it just makes absolutely no sense. So I am generally still very optimistic. We are going to build more energy. We have to build more energy for this increased demand. It will happen. And a lot of it will be solar and wind and battery storage. The question is, how fast will it go off? And will it be able to meet the demand to make sure that prices don't go and be built fast enough so we don't have blackouts because we just don't have enough power, especially in extreme heat and other extreme weather circumstances. Those are really the questions. We're going to keep moving forward, but we should be doubling down on the policies that maybe could go faster to make it cheaper for Washingtonians, not making it more expensive, which is really what these policies are doing. So, Senator Murray, thank you again for your leadership. Appreciate you.
Senator Murray, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I've been working in solar since 2011 and in various aspects of the technology and roles and responsibilities within the industry. And you have been such a leader for clean energy, and it's just really appreciated, and it's certainly benefited my career and interest and engaged my passion. So I just can't thank you enough. I represent Washington Solar Energy Industries Association, and I represent Western Solar, and I also represent myself as a homeowner and a citizen of the state. Innovation, jobs, and energy is what we're talking about here. That's what's at risk. That's what we lost, really. So in 2011, when I started in solar, I worked with Outback Power Technologies. We became part of Alpha Technologies in New Guinea. We were working with the United States Marine Corps on forward operating bases, putting solar and storage technology, I think, benefited us as far back as when I served, where we were using lithium batteries for single radio systems. So it's really fun to be part of this industry. It really bothers me to see this bill get passed by so many when it's just so counterintuitive. In Washington State, it affects countless jobs that are part of our company. We're a company, Western Solar. We have 32 employees. They're at risk. They're at risk right now. We're busy. We're working with Bellingham Public Schools. We're working with the Swinomish Indian Tribal Council on resiliency for their community. We're working with the NWIC and the Lummi tribe, and just homeowners, including myself, that went solar this year, just to have cheaper energy and affordable energy, really, as rising costs are going to be accelerated by this bill, as we've talked about. But I want to talk a little bit more about the innovation we've seen just in Washington. I don't think everybody really understands what's come through Washington. We've manufactured the inverters. We created a lot of the technology that's being used today for virtual power plants in California. We were transitioning from lead acid batteries to lithium right here in Arlington, Washington. It's a hub. It was like Silicon Valley of inverter technologies that are leading the way. That's Washington State, right? Because of all the work what we've done to really pass these measures to support solar, to support innovation, the jobs that come out of that. I mean, I can think of countless companies from Hart Technologies, Trace Engineering, Outback Power, Xantrex, Magnum, Midnight. It goes on, and those are just the inverter manufacturers. Alpha Technologies, Enersys, now they're all part of it. We're at the table with Tesla talking about what virtual power plants would be back in 2016 as between lead acid and in lithium, and having those conversations of what we can do with all of this really cool technology. And now working Bellingham operated and owned, we're doing residential and commercial installations. We're just seeing what we can do right now, right? I was reading an article on the New Yorker saying that from 1954 to 2022, we met the first terawatt of energy in solar energy. From 2022 to 2024, we hit the second one. We probably will hit the third one this year, right? Now, Western Solar, just a small mom and pop shop in Bellingham, Washington, we went from installing our first megawatt in 2015, and this year we're looking at 6 megawatts. So we're just in Bellingham, guys, that we can do in 2025. That's what we're doing. That's what's happening right now. So this is really counterintuitive. It's really helpful to have this kind of to build in this technology to help us. If anything ever happens with Cascadia Fault, what are we going to use? We're going to bring in fuel from overseas somewhere. We're going to bring in oil or coal on trains. It's never going to happen. We need solar. We need distributed energy resources to really take care of these problems. And Washington's been a leader in this. So how is this bill going to affect us? It's going to affect jobs. We're going to reduce the amount of jobs that we have to support solar growth, to support the communities. There's no way everyone can sustain after this. Some companies are going to be in a really good position to continue on, and other companies are going to fade away. The innovation that we've seen over the last, since the 80s in Washington that I'm aware of, and I'm not that old, we're going to see a lot of that drop. We're going to see a lot of that investment drop. We're going to see a lot of that interest drop because the market's dropping, right? As a cliff. Why would we do that? Why would we just drop it off as a cliff where it's just immediately impactful to everybody? We never asked for this to be forever. We can tear it down. We could be smart about it, but just doing a cliff is just such short-sighted thinking on our administration's part. So it's going to be harmful and it's going to have an impact, but solar is resilient. It's full of really smart people, very, very resilient people. And we are going to be innovating, and we're going to be working. We're going to continue, but we definitely need a lot of help out there. And I look to our utilities, I look to our state, I look to our partners, and say we need to reduce soft cost. We need to allow more permitting. We need to reduce interconnection times. We need to continue to work on getting enough solar to bring down the price, and we'll work to reduce all the costs that we can to become more efficient, more effective, to reduce that cost to the homeowner. We're going to do everything we can. And I know Don and I know PSC and Seattle City Light and some of the utilities are just right along with us, partnering with us. Director Nguyen, thank you so much for all the work you did for our tribal communities to bring in more solar, and that's really benefited. So it's benefiting them right now, in fact. And we've been lucky enough to be a part of that. So thank you. Just on behalf of WASIA, everyone's very concerned. Everyone's in emergency mode right now. They're working to do everything they can to understand what we can do to continue forward, creating long-term fixed rate loans that maybe make sense for the homeowners to do whatever we can to stay here, to help people, to solve some of the utility problems of demand by installing more solar. So we're going to be here. We're going to do everything we can, and we need all the help we can get, including homeowners and businesses, to just ask the question of, we can go to work for you and see what we can do to make it make sense. Get an opportunity. Do not just assume solar's not going to work out for you anymore.
Thank you, Brandon. You brought up a really important part that I should have included earlier. My apologies. But with regard to innovation, there is so much that we are on the cusp of, whether that be battery storage, whether that be pump storage, whether that be hydrogen, whether that be fusion. I realize that hydrogen has been affected also. That's important. And this is a crossover, not only energy. We were discussing earlier how energy impacts every element of our life, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a utility, whether you're an end user, a customer who's having to pay for rates. It impacts every element of our life. And it crosses over into transportation, and I elevate the recent changes are going to impact the installation of EV charging stations and also the infrastructure for that, which is going to benefit our transportation system. So this is overarching. It's a Venn diagram with energy in the middle. It crosses everything. So we need to be mindful of even the innovation that's being limited as this.
All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody's input here. The goal of this is, I think this flew under the radar when the bill was passed. It is a huge impact. It is going to increase supply. It is going to increase people's costs. We need to fight back. We need to know people, make people understand what is happening, and we need to get back to work in Washington, D.C., and it hurts, but we can't give up on this. We have to keep going, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
If press could just remind everyone of the outlet and your name before you ask your question. Thank you.
John Stang, freelancer, here scouting for story. So don't expect anything tomorrow. One question for Senator. Similar question. Senator Murray, if you have right now, the Republicans and the Trump administration have a stranglehold on Congress. Is there anything that you or your side can realistically do about this prior to the next, in the next 18 months?
Everything in Congress can be undone by a vote of Congress. And again, I think there were a lot of members of Congress who were not aware of the impact of this. It went through very fast. Everybody was focused on a lot of other things. So I'm trying to refocus on everybody what happened and absolutely go back and see if we can change it and put the tax credits in. Do I think that's reasonable right now? No. But I think nothing happens if you don't fight for it. And secondly, in our appropriations budget bills happening right now, there is an attempt to take away all the investments there in clean energy. We are fighting that back right now as we speak.
Okay, again, how realistic do you think change will happen in the next 18 months?
In terms of the renewable tax credits, that's a real uphill climb. But in terms of stopping the attack on the investments in clean energy in our annual bills, working really hard at that right now.
Okay, my second question for everyone else, and we'll probably put Joe on the spot. Same slant. Congress is, you have absolutely no control over Congress.
Correct.
Unless you convince the two Republicans on the east side of the state to switch. Is there anything that you can realistically do to fix the losses in money and jobs in the next 18 months before the next elections?
Yeah. Well, no, so, yes, no, Washington State, obviously, we have some influence with our federal delegation and our partners, and you'd be surprised, I've had a number of congressional leaders that are not in the same party as me talk about the implications this means in their own jurisdictions, and some of them have written letters. They may have not voted that way, but they did write letters supporting some of the work that's being done, that's kind of being undone right now as well. We are very fortunate in Washington State that we have a regulatory regime that encourages decarbonization. We have a market with a CCA that encourages decarbonization. So you do see, folks, there were solar panels and there were wind farms before the IRA. So you see that there are capital that's out there ready. So in Washington State, I actually think that we're in a unique position where we can, in this moment, lead and show what decarbonizing in a very aggressive, strategic way looks like. So that's one of the ways that we can play. But I will say that our congressional delegation, even if they may not say it publicly, are paying attention and have been asking for ways to help mitigate some of the impacts as well. And again, some of them have written letters, so it's not me just saying this is public, because they know that this is going to impact jobs in their communities. And I think the more that we talk about that, and the more that Senator Murray and we get on board with showing what folks may have missed, I think the better it is going to be for all of us.
If I could just add, I would say there's a few things that I think are most important that we can do. The premise for your question is obvious. I mean, the premise is obvious. I mean, I would say there's a couple things we should do. Number one, what Senator Murray said, we have to fight every day. We should fight to repeal this bill. we should fight to make sure the appropriation is done well and we don't go backwards, like all that stuff. Yes, it's an uphill battle. We have to fight for it. No question about it. Number two is, as Joe said, like there was solar and wind before the IRA. There will be solar and wind, but in this short term, the administration, the big beautiful or the big ugly bill, put in time frames where you have to be at a certain point by July of 2026 at a certain point, and by 2027 you have to be at a certain point. The people in this room have the ability to make sure we do everything we can to knock down the barriers, to make sure that those projects that are already in the pipeline get across the finish line and they don't lose out on those opportunities. We have the opportunity to make a difference on that. So us fighting to make sure that those projects fall victim to these ridiculous timeframes, we can do that. We have to do that, and these are incredible partners, and I'm really excited to make sure that that happens.
City Light, I'll just add, we have to double the nameplate capacity in the next 9 years, no matter what. We have to. So the real question is at what cost, and what resource mix, and the cost of those resources. So we are going to continue on that. We are going to continue to work on wind and solar and batteries. We are going to continue to look for new opportunities in geothermal. We will continue to look for opportunities in partnerships on small modular reactors, public-private partnerships. We are going to have to really cast a wide net around those potential generation sources, and also on the transmission to get that energy here. Those efforts can't stop. So our challenge just got harder, our hill just got steep, but we're going to continue to climb it.
KOW.
A question for very small, perhaps for Senator Murray. You mentioned an 18% reduction in energy output. It's always confusing to know what has already been passed and what is kind of future projection. So I need to understand where that 18% reduction comes from that you're talking about.
I didn't. I think is what you're saying. I didn't say 8%.
The one at size of 2 Seattles.
Yeah. So there's it was gigawatts. So this was a study, and I'm happy to send it to you by an organization called Energy Innovation. They're a nonpartisan organization, does a ton of research, and they said, and I'll just quote from this: the reconciliation bills phase out of clean energy tax credits. Well, I'll do this. In fact, the impact of this bill could decrease electric capacity by 18 gigawatts in Washington State. So not percent, 18 gigawatts. And to put that into context, it's the equivalent of 2 Seattle's worth of energy. So that's what that is. And again, I'm happy to send you the exact reference in this report if it's helpful for you.
Excellent. And quick question for Don. Nameplate, I don't understand that word.
Sure. So nameplate capacity is the capacity a project will deliver if it's running full out. And the reason that's important is because a resource like our beautiful, beautiful hydropower has a very high nameplate capacity. It can generate morning, night, under any weather conditions. It's pumping out the energy. But a resource like solar will only pump 15 to 30% of the time, even under the best conditions, because there's night and there isn't sun during that time. A resource like wind will pump out 30 to 45% of the time. So we have to add a whole lot more megawatts of energy when we're adding wind and solar in order to make up for, in order to compare it to a firm resource. A firm resource is going to pump out at near nameplate capacity, and a solar or wind is going to pump out at a partial nameplate capacity. So it's we call it nameplate because it's the amount of megawatts that go on the nameplate for the facility. It'll say a 450 megawatt facility, but if it's solar, that might be pumping out 100 megawatts.
Thank you.
Senator Murray, TK Johnson with Como News. It's a slightly separate topic, but yesterday President Trump signed an executive order makes it easier for cities to remove homeless from streets. What do you think on that? And what happens if he threatens funding to Washington State? Is there anything that any other federal this
to look of our programs that help homeless to get out. We need to make sure that we are increasing housing. That is the best thing we can do to help homelessness right now. So it's kind of weird to me that he's saying get them off the streets, but he's taking away the actual resources you need on the other end of it to make sure people do have a place to live.
Thank you.
For Senator Murray, the Trump administration just announced their big AI initiative. Can you talk a little bit about how the previous bill undercuts those efforts since AI is so dependent on energy?
Well,
Director,
I mean, I'll let Joe talk about that too. It's kind of the same thing. He says one thing over here and then he takes away the resources that we need to invest in it. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, that's exactly the premise. If you think through about the technologies required for AI and for us to be leaders in that space, it requires hyperscalers, it requires energy for those hyperscalers. So limiting the amount of energy that you can produce, counterintuitive in terms of trying to be a dominant player in the AI space, and also a dominant player in the energy space is what he's named as well. So we've seen this behavior before since 2016, so I'm not shocked that there's some incongruent messaging with how their policies work. So it's unfortunate, but yes, very similar situation. You take one thing and you do another.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, all of you. We've got our work cut out for us, and we just want people to know your prices are going to go up. Speak out. We're going to continue to work hard on this, but people need to know what's happening. So thank you.